Hello, my name is Emily Ojeda, and I'll be presenting on the difficulties of bringing Dune to the big screen. As an introduction, I'll be doing a basic short summary on what the film Dune is based on, since we are all currently reading the book. The film Dune is based in the future where there is a conflict between two families as they battle for the control of the desert planet Arrakis. This planet is the only one with a source of melange called the spice. This drug is vital to space travel, making it the most valuable resource. Paul Atreides' inheritance of control over Arrakis brings them into conflict with the Harkonnens. Here we see a list of difficulties on why Dune has been such a difficult movie to bring to life. Some of these difficulties include several failed attempts, various edits, unfavorable reviews, not enough money, studios rejecting producers' ideas, and timing was never really right. We will go into more depth on each difficulty as we look into specific adaptations of Dune and their challenges they faced. The first one we will look into is David Lynch's Dune film from 1984. After receiving negative and critical feedback, David made a decision to disown the film. He distanced himself and refused to be involved in re-releases. David even asked for his name to be taken off the credits. The difficulties this version encountered was that Universal took post-production control of the film away from David Lynch and cut it short to 2 hours and 15 minutes, when David Lynch originally had it produced at 3 hours. Obviously, this did not make David Lynch proud as this recut eventually caused problems with the end result of the film. The cut resulted in pacing problems, rushed tones, awkwardly dragged battle sequences, and a condensing feeling to the film. It was all seen as more stage rather than his vision to bring this movie to life. Lynch, being a successful filmmaker, felt discouraged and unachieved as the result was not what he hoped for. Now we move on to Alejandro Jodorowsky's scraped film. So before Lynch released Dune in 1984, Jodorowsky was supposed to direct the film originally. Alejandro's vision was to launch a 10-hour version starring big names. However, his vision scared off most producers. The author of the original novel series, Frank Herbert, even traveled to Europe to meet Jodorowsky and his pre-production crew. However, this is where Herbert began to notice some challenges that eventually made the film collapse. To start off, the studio did not have enough money, as mentioned before, to make the actual movie. To be specific, $2 million of Jodorowsky's $9.5 million budget was missing. He had already spent it on pre-production, which became a shocker to Herbert since pre-production films for major Hollywood productions can go into millions of dollars. Herbert also compared his script to a phone book, which meant it was way too long. He stated that the screenplay would result in a 14-hour film. Meanwhile, Hollywood didn't even want the film to exceed 2 hours. 2.5 years later, Alejandro Jodorowsky rose his estimated budget to $15 million. However, if his film was manageable, he would have secured the money. In the end result, he had no choice but to shut down the production due to the lack of money. No one understanding his vision and his long script. However, he still had hope his movie will be released, but as an animated film in the future. These are some of the difficulties Jodorowsky faced with no end result or film being released. The next one I will be talking about is Sci-Fi's channel Dune miniseries. It was a 3-part miniseries that was first broadcasted in the US on December 3rd, 2000 on the Sci-Fi channel. Out of all the ones so far, this has been the most successful one. It has won 2 Emmy Awards in 2001 for cinematography and visual effects in miniseries and movies. Despite its great awards, there was some unfaithful adaptation. For example, fans debated whether the miniseries truly reflected the philosophical and thematic point of view of the original. However, there is some discussion that majority of the people tend to consider the miniseries a more accurate adaptation than the 1984 movie by Lynch. The miniseries included elements that were not found in Herbert's novel but served as an elaboration. Fans had an issue with the way Paul Atreides' character was portrayed. The miniseries also made some stylistic changes where the pronunciations were different than David Lynch's film. The color of the spice-addicted character's eyes had fans upset as well because they were not accurate with Herbert's description in the novel. And lastly, they invented an extensive support subplot for character Irakulin Corino. Although the miniseries made changes that the audience was not a fan of, they still received less critics and didn't go through much difficulties. In the end, their effort resulted in 2 Emmy Awards. The last specific version of Dune I will be explaining is the upcoming 2-part film of Dune produced by Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve is a great filmmaker, which is why when it was announced that he was directing and co-writing Dune, fans were ecstatic. Denis is known for digging into characters in a thematically resonant way that opens a whole nother world. Since David Lynch's version of Dune fell short, Villeneuve believed that splitting the story in half is key to making it a success on the big screen. Although Dune Part 2 has not been approved yet, the script is already in the works. Villeneuve doesn't only have the pressure of pleasing the general audience, but also the big fans of Herbert's book who has not yet had a successful adaptation. It was also found that Villeneuve has included some significant changes to Herbert's story, such as expanding the role of Paul's mother, Lady Jessica, changing the character of Dr. Leah Kynes from a male character to a woman because he thought the lack of female characters. And lastly, toning down the character of Baron Vladimir. As for this production, the only difficulty it faced so far was having to film during a pandemic and stepping back a little. Also, still waiting on the green light for Dune Part 2 to start filming. After the release is when we'll really know how good of an adaptation it was to the original. After reviewing 4 adaptations of Dune, we asked ourselves which one has been more successful. As a quick recap, David Lynch's 1984 Dune Made It Happen, however, received negative feedback. Alejandro Jodorowsky tried to bring his vision to life, but unfortunately did not make it possible and had to be shut down. The Dune miniseries had some critic, however, has been the most successful one, winning 2 Emmy Awards. And lastly would be Villeneuve's Dune, which has not been released yet, but has been anticipated by many fans. Reading that back, I would say the Sci-Fi Channel's miniseries and Dune produced by Denis Villeneuve has been the most successful ones yet. For the miniseries, I would say it has been more successful because, as mentioned before, it has won 2 big awards for its great cinematography and the majority of the reviews have been pretty solid. As for the upcoming two-part film, I would say it will be much more successful because just by looking at the trailer, the audience is already anticipating it to be the best one yet. What also helps in this case is that Denis Villeneuve has a good track record in producing some amazing films that some of us may know. I would also add that this film being produced in 2020 has more of an advantage to be successful because the film industry has evolved so much and Villeneuve has gotten to see the trials and errors it took for the previous producers to make it happen, even the ones that didn't have the luck. For example, they have more opportunities to make the Dune more cinematic since everything is so technology since the technology is so advanced. So to conclude, Dune has not been an easy film to bring to the big screen as you can now see. There were so many bumps and challenges that these producers and people had to overcome to at least be able to release something, even though it didn't always turn out with the greatest success. Hopefully, this upcoming film will live up to everyone's expectations. Thank you for listening to my presentation based on the difficulties of bringing Dune to the big screen. Thank you.